Our next speaker is Ms. Sandra Alonge.
Good morning, everyone, Your Majesties, Your Excellencies, and all of my friends and partners, as well as so many young people here this morning. I'm really happy to be here. It's not my first time. I'm very excited to be here this morning with all of you once again. And I work for GIZ, which is a German development agency. GIZ has been implementing programs in Nigeria since 1974. So we are actually celebrating 50 years of German development cooperation in Nigeria this year. Our program has organized several of the events to commemorate this anniversary. So I've been incredibly busy in the last few weeks, but nevertheless, I still hope I can tell you something enlightening, give you some ideas with wearing my labor goggles, not my chemistry goggles or my cop goggles or my tax goggles, but the labor goggles. So I'm going to be talking about the employment angle, the labor angle on all of this, because I mean I think when we think about areas of Lagos that are particularly impacted by environmental and climate change, we find out that the communities living in those, the people living in those communities are also the most vulnerable in many other aspects. Those are the communities that, on average have lower levels of income, less access to public services, and are struggling to keep up with the necessities of everyday life in 2024. So maybe just a few words on the program that I'm heading in Nigeria since 2019. We basically support partner structures to enable them to support people engaging irregular migration for work and training purposes. Basically, we support different government and non-governmental actors that are providing services so that people can get into jobs or get advice on regular migration. But of course, advice alone isn't going to get you very far. So we're also supporting the ecosystem in terms of providing trainings to people, both soft skills and technical skills, as well as supporting them to start up their own business if that's what they want to do, as well as linking them up with opportunities like remote work, or making them more aware about what the opportunities are in the region, as well as in Germany and Europe. And over the years, since 2019, we've provided over 400,000 individual services and gotten about 150,000 people into jobs. And I'm also happy to say that over this time, the Federal Ministry of Labor and its migrant resource centers have now become best practice in the African Union in terms of return and reintegration. So yes, thank you very much. So in order to achieve all of this, we work with a wide variety of partners, going from the very macro level, ECOWAS, African Union, United Nations, to civil society grassroots organizations. So we have a multi-layered approach in terms of both developing policy as well as doing capacity building and then putting that capacity building into practice. And I just want to share a few words about the pilot project. Well, it started out as a pilot project that we've implemented in Ilashe in collaboration with Pop Beach and Riteonthebeach. And that project basically looked at, let's go on. Yes, this is Ilashe, as we all know. So that's, just leave it there for now. So so what we intended to do is basically, on the one hand, create more job opportunities for young people living in these communities. We all know that there are a lot of holiday houses on these beaches. So basically upskilling people living in those communities so that they can provide the services to people coming to these beaches. So basically upskilling people so that they can deliver services in the tourist industry, in the hospitality sector. At the same time, of course, we were very much aware 3 years ago, you know, the beach was littered with plastic. I mean, it was so sad. Every time we were walking on the beach, you know, you see birds picking on plastic, and we all know what that leads to. So there was also an urgent need in order to upgrade these beaches for international consumption to get rid of that plastic. So we also, besides the skills development, we also mobilized youth to collect plastics from the beach, and an arrangement was made so that they would be paid for collecting this plastic that would then be recycled, and then at the same time, part of that money generated would go towards funding scholarships for children, for them to be able to attend primary school in those communities. So let's go to the next slide. Yeah, so in terms of the impact, we trained 150 youth in hospitality and environmental topics. Those youth were locally employed, the waste picking was activated, 250 children have been, you know, being able to attend school. But when I was in Elashe now in January, for the first time in over a year, I was so impressed. Like there are no more plastic bottles on that beach. You know, so of course, at the same time, many other things happened. You know, in Lagos State, there's been a very concrete attempt at reducing the, you know, the plastic waste into the Lagos Lagoon. So that, of course, has helped. But the number of people engaged in picking the waste has reduced from around 100 to just, I think, 15. So because there's no more waste to pick. So I think that's a great result. Now they're even transforming the waste picking into collecting soft plastics, as Bola so brilliantly told us about. So I think it kind of shows that even with these small initiatives, we can also generate significant impact. But of course, this is just a pilot project. Akintunde was talking about all of the other communities, you know, between Lagos and Badagry that are still there, that are facing very similar issues and that are also in need of skills development. So I think that these kind of projects have the ability to put a spotlight on certain areas of Lagos and show what is possible, to responsibilize and to call into action government partners, but also, of course, to reach out to other donors, other sponsors, other international organizations, embassies, consulates here in Lagos to chip in and to contribute to that skills development that those communities are so much in need of. At the same time, of course, there's also public institutions there, like the Youth Development Center in Elashe, which we are also trying to mobilize. And to ensure sustainability, because it's not just for private partners to be doing this work, it's really for the government to expand these programs and to ensure that people have access to public services. But to say just a few more words about green jobs, I mean, the jobs that we created, are they green jobs? I don't think so. They're not green jobs per se, but they're definitely contributing to, you know, a safer environment and addressing the impact of climate change. In order to get to those real green jobs, we really have to rethink the entire value chain, and that is what Bola was talking about. So that requires a completely different level of action. But should we be waiting for that to happen to do all these other things? No, not at all. We have to mobilize these communities. We have to, you know, improve their living conditions, their access to decent work, to a living wage, because you know, at the end of the day, taking care of the environment also requires taking people out of poverty, because when you're in survival mode, I think it will be very difficult to, you know, to address some of these issues. So, you know, supporting development of the middle class in Nigeria is also a way of ensuring, you know, a better climate outcome for all of us. And having said that, I think there was one more thing I wanted to say. No, well, I'll remember maybe later when the questions come up. But in any case, what I think what's important here is that what we can show is that, you know, the labor aspect and developing local economies is very important, and it can go hand in hand with, you know, protecting the environment. Yes, I think that's what I wanted to say, is that at the same time as training them on technical aspects, we also created more awareness in the communities about, you know, what is actually happening to these mangroves and how we can measure the impact on the environment, because this is of course very important. I mean, it's also about making people more aware of what is really happening. I mean, climate change is not something that affects people in the West only, and I agree with you that, you know, it's very difficult to explain to developing nations that they can't go down the fossil fuel route to achieve development. But we also have to look inwards. I mean, Nigeria also has to look inward. West Africa has to look inwards into techniques and approaches that are more sustainable. Just last week, I was in Benin City in Edo State, where the Museum for West African Art was opened. And the wall of that museum is made out of rammed earth. So rammed earth, you know, those clay huts in villages. So basically, it's like a technique where they use the rammed earth technique to build large buildings, and this is becoming, this has been popularized in Ghana, but I think now more and more people will become interested in it in Nigeria. And why is this relevant? Because first of all, it's more sustainable. It can stay, those walls can stay up for like hundreds of years, but most importantly, it's 30% cheaper and far more energy efficient. So it doesn't require AC, and it uses much less water also when you are building. So those are things that are actually part and parcel of, you know, West African culture. So, you know, it's about looking at, so it's not about saying no to fossil fueled development, but rather saying yes to those practices that are actually already here, but need to be modernized, need to be innovated, need to be made available for a development that is homegrown and that is ultimately better both for Nigeria and the rest of the world. So I'm very happy to be able to be part of in a small way, in many of these processes, and to be able to tell you about this here today. And I hope that the labor goggles will have also added some flavor to this story. Thank you.